Hello and welcome back. So, you want to be a stand-up comedian, hey? Well, look no further. Come on in. Hi, I'm Matt Hoss and I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm a broadcaster, podcaster, content creator. But first and foremost, I started out in comedy. I've been doing that for about 10 years, well maybe more by the time after this video gets a million hits. What? But that's me being optimistic there. I worked for many years doing stand-up comedy, and it's the thing I know the most, and I've got a lot of life experience. And funnily enough, genuinely, I have a master's degree in stand-up comedy, which means when I tell a joke and you don't find it very funny, you're wrong. So I do wish you laughed at that joke, because it literally did cost me £9,000, but never mind. Some of you might be here before your first gig wanting to know what to do before starting stand-up comedy, and that's definitely what this video is for, but it's also for people who've done a handful of gigs, have been gigging for a year, or more than that. You know, it doesn't matter, there's no time limit on this, it's just where I'm coming from. So this is 11 things that you need to know before starting stand-up comedy. It might be starting before a gig or before you start doing your first ever gig, but hopefully it's helpful, and if you do like it, please make sure to like and subscribe and share the video as well. So, tip number 1 is work on your confidence. Before you start doing stand-up, you probably won't have a great deal of confidence in the material that you have. You're looking for experience. And throughout all of these things I'm going to be telling you, you are a student, not a master of comedy. You're going to learn the trade of stand-up. I think it takes 100 gigs to kind of really for the lessons to start kicking in, so it's about getting that experience. So work on that confidence, but that's not what I mean by that. What I mean by work on your confidence is that when you start doing stand-up comedy, the first thing that people will see you for is not the first joke you tell, not the first laugh that you get, and those two can be two very different events. The first thing that people recognize you for is you walking on stage. Yeah. And that walk on stage can be the longest walk that you'll ever have to do, because it can be terrifying. It can be really, really nauseous. It can be it can either make you feel really anxious or very excited. I know for me it makes me very excited, but for a long time I didn't feel like that. But you've got to have confidence, because if you don't have confidence, people will not have the faith in you to believe in your jokes. Imagine you went to a comedy gig and you saw someone walk. I'm going to walk on twice now. The first time I'll do it confidently, and imagine I'm about to start a comedy show. Obviously, I wouldn't sit in the chair in a comedy show, but you do know what I mean. So this is take 1. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary friends, please welcome on stage Matt Hoss. Hello, welcome. Great to be here. Thank you very much for having me. But take 2, however. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary friends, please welcome onto stage Matt Hoss. Welcome. My point is that confidence makes all the difference. If people believe in you, in the fact that you think that you're funny, that will make them think that you are funny. But if you're nervous, that makes them feel, oh, this person is incompetent, therefore I don't think I'm gonna laugh, because if they don't think they're funny, then they're probably not funny. Yeah, so work on that confidence, work on moving forward. Things to build your confidence can be getting to know your material really well. It can be something, for example, like putting your hands on your hips, like the Superman pose. That's what I would like the thumbnail to be. Doing some mindful breathing, stuff like that can just make you feel more calm, more sure. Another trick I always have, before doing a show, any show, I always memorize the first joke in my head. Tip number 2 is make sure to record your set. Now, this is pretty easy in the modern world. You just gotta have an iPhone, maybe a tripod or something like that. You don't need to spend a lot of money to do this. Failing that, for many years, I used a dictaphone, and the reason why I'm asking you to record it, preferably video, but audio is pretty good too. You've got to look back at your previous gigs, to know how to do better in future gigs. Okay, so what I mean by that is that you need to kind of learn from your past mistakes. You got to look at what are the points that people are laughing, and more importantly, what are the points that people are not laughing. Are there any jokes that don't work? Make sure to learn and craft, because that's what that part is. It's about learning that crafts. The additional helpful thing about having video, because audio is good because it picks up the amount of laughter as well. But think about looking at yourself, how you operate on stage as well. It really it adds another layer of how you're behaving as well. Because when you see most famous stand-up comedians, they quite have a calm presence. But I remember when I was first doing comedy, I was flailing around a bit like, "Welcome to the show, I'm Matt Hulse," and not intentionally. That was all just because I was nervous and I was bursting energy. But yeah, so make sure to record your set, but make sure not to do tip number 3. Don't post it online. So when you first do your first gig, you're gonna want to be like, "Yes, I'm a stand-up comedian. Give me likes on Facebook." However, please, for your own sake, do not do that, because if you put a video out when you first start out in comedy, I love you, mate. I really want you to do comedy and give it a go. That's why I'm making this video, so that people might be inspired to do it in the future. But if you continue to do comedy, you're gonna look back at that one day and be like, "That was terrible," and as it should be, because when you first start out, you're not very good at a certain thing. Imagine the first meal that you cooked compared to after building up recipes for years. You know, they're obviously not going to be the same kind of thing. But my point is, like, you should, like, don't put it online, because it stays with you forever. And currently, for now, I have videos of me when I'm younger, and it's the first thing that people see when they try and Google me. And there's videos I'm not necessarily proud of today, and I've kind of grown a lot as a person since those videos came out. Imagine you've just bought a brand new house, but the thing that people first see is all your bedroom walls as a teenager or as a child. That's not necessarily the thing you want to show straight away. You want to show where you are right now. Number 4, don't practice in front of your friends. And this is quite controversial, and do let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but don't invite them to your show, to your first show. Now, here's a couple of things, right? Firstly, friends can be super helpful. Friends are great to have at gigs. Friends are they are so lovely and kind, but I would recommend you bring them along to a show later on in your stand-up career, because when I first started doing stand-up, I brought all my friends to most of my starting gigs, and it was the worst idea I've ever had. I was kind of watching them, making them watch me die on stage as well. I hadn't learnt the craft. And you don't need to be perfect to do stand-up, but at least after 10 gigs, you kind of know a lot more than 0 gigs, you know. And it's kind of like watching a baby monkey trying to drive a car. It's going to be an absolute carnage fest, you know, which is my brand new metal festival, Carnage Fest. I think this is kind of how I feel, because I always I remember before doing my first gig, I was sat in my uni halls with a massive table. I was sat on the standing on the opposite side whilst other people were making the dinner, and my 2 friends were sat watching. And I was telling the jokes that I was really proud of, but as per my last point, I shouldn't have been that proud of them, and they weren't laughing. They didn't really give me a good vibe, and you know when your heart just sinks? It affects your confidence. It affects you kind of not feeling good about the jokes. And the reason it doesn't necessarily work, also, this is the same reason why when someone asks you, "Oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke," that never works, because you're outside of the theatre of stand-up comedy. And we can talk about this in a future episode, but the point of this is that stand-up requires lots of elements to work properly. You need people in the audience to be compact, you need a room where people are focusing, you need a microphone. Look, microphone and lights definitely help as well, but just doing part of your set apropos of nothing to 2 people, doesn't necessarily work. And though it's a very kind thing for them to offer, and it's nothing on a reflection of your friends, but do your friends a service and invite them later on. Just to end on this point on the positive, if you bring your friends to a gig, you will have a higher chance of having a really good gig, because friends are on your side automatically. Friends are the people that you want on your side at a stand-up gig, because they will get the laughter rolling. You will have some unconditional love, and unconditional love in those early gigs can be really, really helpful. But be sparing, you know. You don't want to ask your friends to every single gig. And also, it's kind of rude to ask them to come to every gig, you know. Be kind, invite them sparingly. Tip number 5 is discipline. Make sure you have some, because I want you to be writing as much as you possibly can, really. And there is a stipulation to this, but I want you, before you get to your first ever gig, write as much as possible. Try and write all the things that you think are funny. Try and write about your life experiences. Try and sit down every single day to write, because I remember talking to some comedian friends. I did a university module in stand-up where I did an introduction to stand-up at the University of Kent under Ollie Duvall. And if you want to know more about stand-up comedy and like the theory and academia behind it, check it out. 2 brilliant books right there. I remember some students being like, we were asked as an assignment to bring something to class, and some students were like, nah, I didn't think of anything funny this week, so I didn't write anything. And that's not how it works. You've got to make the time to produce something funny, because you can't just, I'm not saying sit down and funny will happen, because sometimes that doesn't necessarily happen, but if you make the time, funny things kind of naturally come to you. And also, help yourself out. Every time you think of something half funny, write it down in your notes. And we've all got phones today, so make sure you're cataloguing them as much as possible. So take that time to be disciplined and write. You will have 5 minutes at your first ever gig. If you have longer, then you're probably being booked for probably the wrong slot. 5 minutes is what you want to go for. You want to make sure you choose your set list. Choose something which is punchy. Choose the things that you think are going to work best. And I would like you to kind of focus on the best bits. What do you think are going to get the best reaction? So you want to have lots to choose from. So keep on writing, and that's a good discipline to get into. Tip number 6, linked to confidence, is figure yourself out before you get on stage. Who are you, and how do people perceive you? This is a big question, and you're not going to answer it before your first gig. I know I'm asking you to figure yourself out, but this is a process. Stand-up makes you more self-aware of who you are as a person. So it's going to be quite an emotional journey, and I'm saying don't be afraid to learn on stage, but I guess what I'm trying to help round up here is that I would like you to to know what kind of vibe you bring. Try to figure out what kind of personality you bring on stage, what kind of energy you bring, because you can be high or low energy, you can be high or low status, and all those mean different things, and see how people perceive you. I would ask the audience to kind of say, what do you think of me? How would you describe who I was, who my personality is? But don't try and be someone else. Try and be yourself, because that's what's going to be the most interesting. Tip number 7 is very similar. Try to be mindful of your material. When you're performing jokes for the first time, I quite often see a lot of open mic acts who do jokes not for the enjoyment of the audience, but the enjoyment of themselves. I'm going to talk about this more in my future and upcoming video, how not to do open mic comedy. Try and write the things that you think are funny, and not the things you want people to kind of react to. And again, we'll discuss this more in another video, but I want you to be mindful what your material you're saying comes across, because I know I didn't do that in my first couple of gigs, and I said some things I probably would not repeat now, or I definitely wouldn't repeat now, but I didn't understand how it came across, because I was trying to make people laugh, but actually it just made people feel a bit sad or weird. And for a while, when I was very depressed in comedy, that I just said things which tried to alleviate my personal trauma, not to actually make people laugh. And I really did get confused. I forgot that was the aim of comedy. It sounds really dumb. Basically, try and be funny. Final bit to tip 7 is write the things that you think are funny and keep the stuff which the audience likes. I think that's a nice way to phrase it. Tip number 8, pretty simple, but don't call yourself a comedian straight away. Whenever you see someone do a first gig or do the first paid gig, they say like, huh, I'm a real comedian now, and they change their career on Facebook to comedian. Don't do that. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Because it's kind of cocky and arrogant, and yeah, it's very, more worse than that, it's naive. It's not a true statement of that. And any comedian that knows you will probably do an eye roll at that point. Remember, you are a student, not a master yet. Tip number 9. Be prepared for things not to work, because there's a high chance before you get on stage that things aren't going to work. Some jokes won't work. When you get on stage, you might lose some of the delivery or have a bad patter. It's okay to fail. Failure is really, really important to grow, because without that failure, you can't become a better comedian. So even if you don't get any laughs all night, that's fine. You're only as good as your next gig. So dust it all off, get to the next one, and focus and try and change something. Was it some jokes you told? Was it the vibe that you brought on stage that kind of made people be like, oh, what the hell's that? Watch it back, see what went wrong, and figure it out for next time. Number 10, a really easy one, but a super important one. Go and watch the professionals do it. I remember going to a lot of the theatres in Canterbury when I did my university degree, and I watched comedy pretty much every single night. Every comedian, well, that was in that city or in the surrounding areas, I went to and saw, and I engulfed that knowledge that helped me become a comedian. Because you see how people have honed their craft. Don't just go to open mics, see how the professionals do it. But an important thing is here, don't imitate them. Be inspired, but don't imitate. Don't plagiarize, but people can kind of sense if you're imitating someone's style, and you're a very interesting person, so just figure out who you are, and then move on from there. Tip number 11, work smart. It's a very vague term. I worked very, very, very hard in stand-up, and I would do multiple gigs per week, drive as far as I could, but in the end, I wasn't really working very smart. I was working hard, but not working smart. And what that means is that I was happy to put the dedication in, but I didn't really put it in the right places. I remember my friend at university telling me that I was about to do a 3-hour gig for a 5-minute slot. So that's a 6-hour round trip for no money. And I was willing to do it. And it seemed like a terrible gig on the outset, and it probably was. And my friend had to stop me because it was quite a big thing to do, especially when you had no money. And just because my drive and my heart and my ambition was there, it wanted to work hard, but it wasn't a smart thing to do, because instead of using 6 hours for a gig that wouldn't really get me that much experience, you could spend time working on a really good show, or working on some more jokes, or spending that time more effectively, so next time you had a more local gig, it could be even effective. You're going to be facing rejection, you're going to have to make sacrifices in stand-up, and it's quite a lonely lifestyle, but it is very, very rewarding and very fulfilling when you get it right. So that's 11 things that you need to know before you get into stand-up comedy. Obviously there's quite a lot of content in there, and a lot of things I've had to cut out as well. So if you think I've missed something, or something you would like me to elaborate more on, let me know in the comments. We want to hear what you think I should be covering next time, or things that you think I might have missed off. Let us know. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video, and please follow me at Matt Hoss Comedy on all platforms, including Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and join me for my next couple of videos as well, as we really do a deep dive on things that you shouldn't be doing in comedy, and also how to build an hour show. And so it takes you from beginning, intermediate, to advanced stuff in stand-up comedy. I've been Matt Hoss, and we'll see you again soon. Bye!